Hi everyone, Jason here from spiritualbabies.net. We're joined this week by Rabbi Stuart Federow on the subject of worship. And it's an interesting subject because it's a word that pops up so many times, but I don't
Right.
think anyone's ever really explored
Discussed it.
what it means. And I
Right.
wonder,
Well, see, that's just it. We really have to discuss the definitions first. And I think the dictionary defines worship as a very large ocean-going ship from which you can wage war.
thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
I knew you'd get a kick out of that.
But seriously.
Not seriously, folks. All right. So at any rate, worship to me, okay, is a specific feeling. Okay, and it's a feeling of being in awe of God or acknowledging internally that God is worthy of your praise. Okay, it's a feeling of the greatness of God. So, from my perspective, the issue becomes, how does Judaism put a person in a position where they're going to feel worship of God? That's how I look at it.
So when we see other faiths worship, and Islam, they are on their knees and they prostrate themselves forward, and I don't see that happen in synagogues. And when we see a Christian church, they'll sometimes kneel,
Right,
and I
but
don't
see,
see that either.
to me, a person can be in Islam and on the ground, on their knees, bowing to the ground, and not be in worship. A person can be in a Christian church and on their knees and reciting, if they're Catholic, the Mass or what have you, and not be in worship. Worship is a feeling that's supposed to be, that might be engendered. Okay, the person might be aided, helped to feel it by, like in Islam, being on the knees, or in Christianity, being on their knees, what have you. But it doesn't necessarily mean they are. And the same phenomenon, or lack of it, you can find in any religion, and unfortunately that includes Judaism. So the question becomes, how does the religion, as a system of religion, put a person, a member, a believer, in a situation where they're going to feel this? Okay, and Judaism, I think, is very interesting because it has a number of approaches, I think, to worship that other religions don't necessarily have. And to me, one of the obvious ones that everybody has is a worship service. Okay, which is where you get the Muslim on the ground, and where you get the Catholics, for example, on their knees. Okay, and in Judaism, we have, of course, our daily services. Okay, that's universal. To me, Judaism has other interesting ways to make a person feel this feeling of being in worship of God through, for example, study. Okay, part of our religious service in the morning, okay, is a study, even if we don't really realize it.
As an example, when the Jewish congregation stands for the Amidah, that's they're standing out of an act of respect.
Okay, but watch what happens with the Amidah. Okay, and this to me is always an interesting distinction, I think, between Judaism and other faiths. Okay, we stand up for the Amidah, but during the Amidah, there's only 3 times where we actually do a bowing. When we do a bowing, we never do it at the neck. Okay, it's interesting that, to me, if you're in a group of people and for whatever reason, you're with a group of people and there's a speaker and you didn't know it was coming, but somebody stands up in the front and says, "Let us pray." Okay, it's like there's a little cord attached to the chins of everybody else that gets pulled down because and the Jews stand up straighter. Okay, why is that? Why don't we bow at the neck? Okay, you may remember the lulav at the beginning. I'm sorry, at the Sukkot
Mm.
celebration. The middle of it has a palm branch. The palm branch. There's a midrash that each one of the four kinds, the myrtle and the palm and the willow and the etrog, okay, represent parts of the body with which we are showing worship of God when we shake it. So the palm is the spine, but if the top of it gets broken, okay, it can't be used. It's not kosher anymore. Okay, so the idea is that we're supposed to be even before God. Bowing is at the neck is a sign of shame. Bowing, a person who bows at the neck, it's like you're being yelled at. Mommy or daddy gets mad at you, and okay. In Judaism, you bow at the knees. Okay, you bow at the waist. Okay, Yom Kippur bow on the floor, just like we see the Muslim community, like you're referring to, more or less. I mean, we're flat, but not at the neck. So the sign of worship in the middle of what truly is the most important collection of prayers in a prayer service, the Amidah, the actual pouring out the heart to God. Okay, you don't bow at the neck because you are made in the image of God, little lower than the angels. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done, but as made in the image of God, little lower than the angels, you have no reason to be in shame by bowing at the neck.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting approach to worship because, yes, God, you're fabulous, you're wonderful, you're worthy of our praise, you make an amazing, beautiful world. But even though I am worshiping God, I still have the self-dignity and self-worth to stand up straight and not bow at the neck. It's a very interesting attitude, I think, that Judaism has.
I had the understanding that the word worship as a physical thing literally meant to prostrate yourself on the floor, which I think is the kind of flat out kind of star shape that you sometimes see on Yom Kippur or that they used to do in the temple. But I'm getting the impression that worship itself is more of, so it's a great bit in the Tanakh, that I shall render for calves the fruit of my lips.
Right, exactly, yes. In other words,
it's your action, your want for the action rather than the action that you're using as a means of worship, as a vehicle for worship.
Right, but think about the words that you just said. Okay, the reference I believe you're talking about is the rhetorical questions. What do you really want from me, God? Would sacrificing myriads of oil be enough for you? Okay, would 1,000 rams, 10,000 rams, really show how much you've done for me? Okay, they're not sacrificing oil, they're not killing lambs. They're expressing an outpouring of the worshipful feelings that they feel towards God. So part of the Jewish services that include that, okay, have these phrasings that help us feel what was felt when those words were written. Okay, there's a dual concept when it comes to liturgy. And Judaism is a liturgical faith. There's a liturgy, a set text to go through. Okay, the two operative terms are keva and kavanah. Okay, keva means fixed. When you put the mezuzah on the doorpost, it's likboa mezuzah, to affix, set so it doesn't move the mezuzah. All right, so we know the term keva from affixing a mezuzah. The word kavanah means really with feeling. You really feel the prayer as you are praying it.
Like concentration.
Yes, but it's not just concentrating. It's concentrating so when you read it, you're feeling what you're reading. Okay, and remember the Siddur, the prayer book has been written down over thousands of years. Okay, a lot of the poetry that we read, okay, and sing may be only hundreds of years old, not thousands of years old. So over time, somebody comes up with a song. That's really what it is. And they sing it. And everybody says, oh, wow, that's so great that you express it so beautifully. Let's do it again next week. So when they first hear it, when they get into it, when they're singing it, that's the kavanah. Over time, they like it so much, they say, why don't we put it in our prayer book, okay, so we can do it every week and the text is in front of us. And now it's fixed. That doesn't mean that 10,000 weeks later, when the group sings the same song, even though it was new 10,000 times before, now it's not new anymore, but it's in the prayer book and now it's fixed. But the idea is that through what is fixed, what is keva, we can reach the point of kavanah. But again, it's a kind of, it's like, there's always a twist with Judaism. It's always not quite, I'm fond of saying this, Judaism isn't a Western religion. They don't call it the Middle West, they call it the Middle East. And in our spiritual side of the religion, it's an Eastern religion. And when you think of an Eastern religion, you think of meditation. You think of a mantra in Hinduism and Buddhism. And truthfully, that's what our service is supposed to be. Okay, Jason, I don't know exactly what it would be for Dublin, Ireland, okay, or for London. London, I guess it would be God Save the Queen. But before a sports event, was there a national song that you sing before the event?
Yeah, Ireland has a national anthem. It's relatively new, because it's a relatively new country. We've only been around for 100 years or something.
Okay, so when they sing the song, which I'm not familiar with at all, okay, when they sing the song, do they actually feel, are they actually intellectualizing the thinking about the actual meaning of the words? Or is the purpose of it to sing it as a group and unify the people, both teams, both sides, as one before the game is played?
That's a fair point.
Okay, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it depends on where you are, I think. And when Ireland is playing England at football, the Irish are definitely listening and understanding every single word. But maybe not so much when it's like a national event and it's one Irish team playing another Irish team. Maybe it's more about unification at that point.
Well, see, I know that in the United States, we sing our national anthem before a baseball game. But I don't think people are singing it and thinking this intellectual understanding of this guy on a ship and hoping that his flag is still, being raised when this battle is over. I don't think that's what they're doing. But they're singing it, and they're singing it with fervor, and they're singing it as a group, and it unifies the people. But it's not an intellectual endeavor. It's a spiritual, emotional endeavor. And when Jews do our worship, we're not a Western religion. It's an Eastern religion, and that's what our services does for us. It simultaneously unifies us because we're davening, we're praying together, okay? But parts of the service are in silence. You don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what you're doing. I could be outpouring my heart to God, okay? The Amida especially, by the way, it lends itself to that. And we're all together. We're all standing together, so we're all a community, but I'm an individual too. Okay, and there's only one line in the entire service that you're really supposed to think about its meaning as you say it. Everything else, in my opinion, operates like a mantra. And the one line, of course, is the Shema, the oneness, absolute oneness of God. Okay, and you'll see people, cover their eyes to better enable themselves to concentrate on that one line. But everything else, okay, I think operates more like a mantra, like a way to meditate and be able to transcend space and time. Have you ever been, driving a car and you drive 2 or 3 miles and all of a sudden, whoa, how'd I get here? Well, that's the state of meditation, of transcending time and space, that the meditation, because you're really thinking about something, you're still driving the car, you're still pushing on the gas pedals, you're still doing what you have to do, but your mind has completely transcended where you are. And that's really the purpose and function, I think, of Jewish worship. Okay, it's a mantra. It's the same thing again and again. The text really doesn't change. Okay, there's a rhythm to it. You'll see people responding to that internal rhythm by shuckling, by movement and prayer. Okay, and by transcending our space and time. Okay, that's enables us to feel this feeling of true worship of God. It's an Eastern system, not a Western system for our spiritual life. I think that's how I look at it.
So we've spoken a little bit about then how a Jew would worship within a synagogue environment. But what about
but Jason, this is what I'm trying to get across. These are systematic ways to enable the Jew, while they're in the worship service, to feel worship. You see what I'm saying? It's not going to happen every time. It's not, but the more often you do it, the more likely you are to have that engendered feeling. Okay, but you're right. That's only in the services.
What about the people that are watching this that aren't Jewish and don't go to synagogue? And how could they use Jewish techniques to formulate some sort of worship practice at home? Is it possible to do that while you're studying, or
study? See, that's what I was going to get at study. There's a part in our service where we're studying. Okay, la'asok, but see, now it comes right off my head. La'asok b'divrei Torah. Praised are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy by giving us the commandments and commands us to busy ourselves in a word of Torah. Okay, and then you actually study. Okay, now there are passages that are there, and by reading them, that's constitutes study. Okay, later on during the service, there's going to be usually a Devar Torah, literally a word of Torah, but it means kind of like a sermonette. Okay, where you're taking the Torah section, the portion that you're reading for that day, and you're discussing it, which is truly an intellectual endeavor. But the idea is to, I think, engender this feeling of awesomeness of God. Okay. But while I could be studying nuclear physics, and if it engenders in me, and I take a look at this physics, and I see how the interworkings of God and how it happens, and I think to myself, "Wow, God, that's phenomenal." Okay, that's the worship. That's feeling of worship, which can come from study, even if it's, I don't know, I have NASA. My congregation is NASA, so it's they really are rocket scientists. Okay, I mean, like literally, and they could be doing their aeronautical engineering and think to themselves how all this fits together so beautifully. God, wow, you're just great to have done this. So even study can lead to worship. Okay, so how can someone watching this engage God? Okay, I think that's going to be very, what's the word, specific to the individual. Okay, I think that, maybe they should get a local synagogue and see what it does for them. I hope they actually consider full conversion to Judaism. Okay, but barring that, okay, Jason, have you heard people talk about I get close to God going out into a park? Okay. Judaism looks for a minyan, a quorum of 10 men. Okay. And the idea is that Judaism as a system wants the feeling of worship in community, but they don't have to have the community. Okay. And if they're living in a place where they can't access other fellow Noachides, okay, Gerim, okay, they themselves can still put themselves in a place where they are more likely to feel these feelings of worship. They can study the Tanakh. They can study Jewish sources. They can do those things that lend themselves to see the amazing acts of God in their lives. Okay. They can take sections of the Bible, okay, and use them. Judaism, what's the central part of the service? It's the Shema and her blessings. Okay, it's the you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. Okay, it's and if you obey these commands, these are certain sections. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 and following. Okay, the Shema, you shall love the Lord your God. Okay, they can take sections and read them and maybe help themselves put themselves into a meditative state. Okay, where it's so rote and so often and so, which reminds me of something, but they have to do it often enough so it becomes almost rote, and it allows them, while they're having that rote experience, to have their minds, transcend the time and space. Jason, I used to be the Hillel director here in Houston, Texas. That was actually 96 different campuses of various colleges throughout the greater Houston area.
Can you explain what that means to someone that hasn't heard of Hillel?
Okay, it's an on-campus college Jewish organization for the college students, and actually also for the faculty and their families and staff and their families on the college campus, to have basically their on-campus synagogue and all of that entails. So we have, we give lunches for the students. We had programming speakers come and speak, professors on various topics of Jewish interest. We got enormous help from the local federations, Jewish Federation, the B'nai B'rith, the Anti-Defamation League, the American Jewish Committee. We would get people to come and speak to the students on any topic of Jewish interest. Okay, and we also would have services on Shabbat for the students. Okay, and some of the students came from absolutely no background whatsoever, and some of the students, it was a conglomeration, a getting together of every kind. But our Hillel, was not like some Hillels with 100 million billion different students in one campus. We had a very small Jewish community here in Houston, and it was University of Houston, Rice University, Baylor College of Medicine, South Texas College of Law, UT Med School. I think I'm missing one, but I've been out for 22 years. So at any rate, the point is that the first Friday night of the school year, I would have a service called Shabbat Hanasich HaKatan, which means the Sabbath of the Little Prince. The book, The Little Prince. And there's a section in The Little Prince where the little prince meets the fox, if you're at all familiar with the book. And the fox stays at a distance from the little prince. And at one point, the little prince tries to engage the fox in conversation because, in literature, animals can talk. So the fox says to the little prince, "You need to tame me." And the little prince says, "Well, what does it mean to tame?" And the fox says that you come to the same place at the same time, and I get used to the fact that you are there, and I look forward to the fact because I begin to hear your footsteps and know that it's you, and I get excited that I'm going to see you. And over time, okay, you tame me, and I'm not nervous or scared about being with you anymore. And I use that as an analogy with the college students, that services are where you get tamed by the service tames you, and you tame the service. In other words, you may not know what to do, you may not know, how to act, you may not have read this before, or you may have known this all your life, but the way we do it isn't necessarily the way they do it in Dublin, Ireland. Okay, the service, there are nuances of change that people don't realize. I will not make you rip your headphones off your ears to get away from me singing. But there are times where one group will go upscale with one of the words, and another synagogue will go downscale, and you'll go up and they'll go down. And you go, "Oh, that's not how they do it here." So it's not always exactly the same. There are nuances of difference. So we have to learn to be together and be tamed by the service, and we tame the service. You go to the same place at the same time, like the little prince and the fox. Okay, and slowly over time, the service you make your own because you've come often enough that you know what to do and what's expected of you, like the little fox, like the fox and the little prince. And I did that every year, and made sense to these people. And over time, the more often they come, I would say the same thing for everybody listening. The more often you do it, okay, and you get used to it, and you know what's expected of you, and you know what to expect from the service, okay, even if it's just sitting in the forest, okay, reading the same passages from Tanakh, even from the prayer book, okay, and communing with God, being in communion with God, saying, God, I really feel your presence, and just thank you for all you've done. You know, adoration, the word adoration, to adore. You know, we think of, oh, that child is so adorable. Look at that cute puppy. It's so adorable. No, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about to adore something means to worship it, to say, you know, how special, how wonderful this is in my life. And if these passages can engender that in a person, okay, it really can come from anything. You know, passage about creation, you know, the in the beginning passages in Genesis, you know, you read them, you feel what it's saying, okay, you read it religiously, pardon the pun, often enough, okay, then you make it your own, okay, and it becomes your way to commune with God and to feel the presence and to say, to feel this, God, you are fabulous. What a wonderful world you've created for me. That would be my strong suggestion.
So if it feels almost as if I was going to give worship a definition, it would be a time of the day where you take yourself out of your normal routine and
Right.
spend time just focusing on God. And you might do that through prayer or through reading something in the Tanakh or
Right.
listening to some Torah.
But remember something. It's not just to say the words. That's keva. It's also to feel the kavanah, the true feelings, you know, when the author wrote them. Okay, when you first heard them, you went, wow, that's exactly how I feel. It's to engender those feelings again. So it's not just the recitation of the words. It's the recitation of the words to allow you to transcend the time and space you're in and to be able to really focus. Maybe that's a great word, to focus on how wonderful the world is that God made for you. The only thing I'd like to say too, which I think I actually mentioned earlier today to someone, is that there's a saying that for your mental health, you have to divert daily, you have to withdraw weekly, and you have to abandon annually. And what does that mean? It means that when you divert daily, you are taking a very short period of time to divert your attentions from your day-to-day drudge, your work day, okay, and focusing it on something else. That's like the Siddur, the prayer book. Okay, you withdraw weekly. That means that every week you have to completely withdraw for a time from Facebook and your cell phones and your electronics, and talk to people and just get away from the day-to-day work, business, drudge, whatever. Okay. Well, for Jews, we call that Shabbat. Okay. And to abandon annually means that every year you have to completely get away. And I mean, literally, physically get away from all the norm. Okay. And well, we call that the vacation, but we kind of also call that in Judaism the Chagim, the holy days, where you're completely getting away from the normal day-to-day drudge and you're completely shifting your attention elsewhere. Okay, but it really needs to be, okay, the abandon annually really needs to be a physical vacation away, you know. Who knows? Like going to Malta.
Right, like going to Malta. Or Sukkot, if you're Jewish and you keep Sukkot, then you're removing yourself completely from your home most of the time.
Exactly. It's an annual abandonment of the norm because it refreshes the mind. Divert your attention daily, withdraw yourself weekly, and abandon annually. And it really, it's what the vacations are supposed to do for us, which I would argue, okay, for the Jewish community is the Siddur, Shabbat, and, you know, the holidays, holy days that really take you away.
If you're watching this and you're not Jewish and you don't have access to a siddur, I'm going to selflessly plug some videos that I made a few months ago on daily prayer for non-Jews.
Absolutely, I saw those, and I'm not just saying this, Jason. I'm really not, but they're really good. They're really, when you allow them to touch you, okay, it can engender the feelings of worship. I thought those were great.
Thank you. There'll be a link to those under the video, and there's one for each day of the month, and you can go in there, and it's got a little bit of the Shema, and it's got some Psalm, and it's different every day, and it might help you. You can take 10 minutes out and spend some time. Other than that, I think we are done. That was really, really helpful.
Well, I hope so. And a lot of it was just my opinion, but
well, it's a valid opinion, or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, I hope so.
So thanks very much. I'm sure I'll see you again super soon on a different topic. If you have,
I hope so.
If you are watching and you have something you'd like to hear Rabbi Federow speak about, please leave a comment underneath, or you can message us on YouTube. That'd be really great. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You can message us on Facebook. Awesome. Thank you very much, Rabbi Federow.
My pleasure. Always my pleasure. Good seeing you and good talking with you.
And we'll see you all again very soon.
Absolutely.